Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on one of the most fundamental processes in government, and we're going to do it by following one single, real-world bill on its journey from a simple idea to, well, to its ultimate fate. Let's dive in.
It's that classic question from civics class, right? We've all seen the cartoon flowchart. An idea gets written down, a bunch of people vote on it, and poof, it's a law. Seems pretty straightforward.
But here's the thing. For the vast majority of bills that get introduced, that triumphant signing ceremony, it never happens. The real story is way more complicated and, honestly, a lot more fascinating. So, to really understand this journey, we're not going to look at some huge, controversial piece of legislation. Nope. Instead, we're going to follow the humble path of what seems like a totally straightforward bill from the Tennessee General Assembly. That's it. That's the official summary right there. No big debate, no partisan drama. The whole point was just to create a new specialty license plate for the tech sector. I mean, it's pretty hard to imagine something less controversial than that.
And here it is, our hero for this story. House Bill 0128, or HB 0128 for short. It was introduced way back in 2001, and its story is just a perfect case study for how the legislative sausage really gets made.
Okay, so an idea exists, and now it has a number. What happens next? Well, the journey begins with a bunch of formal, procedural steps that officially get the bill into the system.
So on January 11th, the bill gets filed. Before the month is even over, it's already gone through its first and second readings. These are really just the initial bureaucratic hurdles, the official announcement that says, hey everyone, this bill is now in play. Now, if you ever look at an official bill history, you'll see all this jargon like P1C. That's just legislative shorthand for past first consideration. It doesn't mean anyone debated the bill or voted on its merits. It's just a procedural checkmark to officially get it on the agenda.
So after it's introduced, our bill enters what is without a doubt the most critical and challenging phase of its entire life, the committee system. This is where most bills go to die. You can think of it as a series of trials it has to pass just to survive.
Now, in that civics class version of the story, the path looks pretty simple. A bill goes to a small subcommittee of experts, then it goes to the main committee, and if they all say yes, it's off to the entire House or Senate for a final vote. Nice and clean.
Yeah, but reality almost never follows that neat little script. For our license plate bill, the journey wasn't a straight line at all. It was more like a winding path through a whole chain of different committees.
Check out the actual timeline. On Valentine's Day, it gets assigned to the Transportation Subcommittee. A little over a week later, it passes. Awesome. Then, on March 7th, it passes the full Transportation Committee. Success. But wait. On that very same day, it gets sent over to a completely different committee, Finance, Ways and Means. The gauntlet just got a whole lot longer.
So why the big detour to the Finance Committee? Well, because pretty much every bill has some kind of cost or a financial impact. And before it can go any further, the legislature has to know exactly what that is. This whole analysis is called the fiscal note. And every fiscal note basically looks at two things. On one side, you have revenues. That's the money the bill is expected to bring into the state. And on the other side, you've got expenditures. That's how much it's going to cost the state to actually put the new law into practice. So what was the price tag for our tech license plate? Well, the fiscal summary figured it would bring in about $12,500 in new state revenue every year. Not going to make or break the budget, but hey, it's a positive number.
And the cost to do it? Just a one-time expense of $4,000. And that was probably just for things like designing the plate, updating some computer systems, and other little setup costs.
So let's get this straight. The bill actually makes money for the state. It brings in more than it costs. It's already passed one full committee. I mean, this thing seems like a total slam dunk. So what could possibly go wrong now? And this is where the journey of House Bill 0128 takes its final, very quiet turn. It enters the labyrinth of the Finance Subcommittee, and all of its forward momentum just stops.
On March 7th, it's assigned to the Budget Subcommittee. A week later, it gets put on the calendar for discussion. But on that very same day, its journey effectively ends with just two words: action deferred. And this, right here, is how so many bills die. Not with a bang, but with a whimper. Action deferred is a procedural move that basically sidelines a bill. Now, technically, it could be brought up again, but what it often means is the bill is being put on a shelf to be forgotten without forcing anyone to take a controversial no vote. It just fades away.
Okay, so a specialty license plate bill from over 2 decades ago never became law.
Why should we care? Well, because the story of this one tiny bill tells us so much about the entire legislative process.
This one bill's journey is like a miniature version of the whole system. It shows us the process is a marathon, not a sprint. It proves that committees are incredibly powerful gatekeepers. They're these specialized filters, where just a handful of lawmakers can decide a bill's fate. It shows us that even an idea that makes financial sense isn't guaranteed to succeed. And it reveals that a bill can die not with a loud no, but with a quiet deferral. But the biggest lesson? The vast majority of ideas that go into this process never, ever make it out the other side.
And that kind of leaves us with a final thought. This was the story of one simple, forgotten bill for a license plate. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many other ideas, big and small, simple and world-changing, are just sitting right now, stuck somewhere in that same legislative maze?